You better own gold as a defensive step in this period in which everything is breaking down.
I was in Fiji talking to an American guru. He was a Hindu, he was a white guy, and he was an Indian guru. He was in the Apple commercial. I don't know if you guys remember that years ago. There had a bunch of these white guys dressed as Indian gurus, Hindus, and they had holy icons. They had an Apple computer. So I met the guy. He was dripping in gold. So I had to ask him, you know, if he's a spiritual guy, because a lot of Americans, especially Christians, think that money is the root of all evil. Well, this Hindu guy definitely did not believe that one. So he's sitting there, white guy, long white beard, white clothes, gold dripping from him. He goes, I said, hey, Guru Deva was his name. How come you have so much gold on? In a Christian religion, you'd be a heretic. And the guy, he cracks up. He looks at me because I held no boundaries. He says, because gold is the tears of God. I went, what? So I said, so I'm not saying this is true, you guys. But if the guru says that and he's dripping in gold, and he says, besides that, gold is the attractor of wealth. So on the spiritual, on God's side, I'm not really religious here, but gold attracts wealth. He said, because I was broke at the time. And he says to me, he says, look, if you want $1,000 a month, hold $1,000 in your house. Gold will attract $1,000. So with that, Kim and I went on a high-powered spending spree, buying all the gold we could, storing it, hiding it away from our house. And sure enough, our wealth went up. So I'm not saying it's true. But if the guru says so, gold is the attractor of wealth.
We've said the word trillion a lot. I want people to understand, keep it simple. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. Let's put context in just how big these problems are. You're talking Neanderthals stalking the plains of Europe a trillion seconds ago, and we have a almost $34 trillion debt and 130 trillion in unfunded liabilities, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government, military pensions. That's why you need to look at gold.
So Dana, final question is this: what's the chances of confiscation of gold they did in 1933?
Well, the only country that confiscated gold was the United States. No other country around the world had a gold confiscation order. The chances of that repeating itself, I think, are fairly low because back then 100% of the public could own gold in the form of a vintage coin that was currency and money at the time. And there's a distinction between the two. And the government wanted to print more currency than they had money. So they did that. Now today, maybe 5 to 10% of the public owns gold. All the major countries around the world are in the process of producing and selling gold bullion coins. United States, Austria, China, Australia, Canada. And I think, with the small percentage of people that actually own gold and it's not a trading currency anymore, I think the chances of confiscation are pretty slim, to be honest with you.
Rick Rule says he thinks less than 0.5% own any gold and silver. I think the way that they would do it if they wanted to confiscate gold would be to take the ETFs like GLD and SLV. And the funny thing about it is that SLV, the big ETF that is supposedly the first or second largest stockpile of silver in the world, it's held by JP Morgan. Talk about Fox guarding the hen house. They paid a $920 million fine for suppressing the metals market, and they're allowed to control the world's largest silver trust. And HSBC Bank maybe paid more fines than any commercial bank on the planet, is the custodian of GLD. So if they really wanted to confiscate metal, they could come in on a Friday night, they could nationalize the ETFs, be sitting on this huge stockpile of gold and silver and look at the world in the face and say, what? We didn't do what he did, what Roosevelt did in 33. We didn't take your gold. In fact, you can still go buy gold from Dana or from Andy or from these guys here who hey, go for it. We're not making it illegal, but I think that the unintended consequences of confiscating gold when you still pretend to be the world reserve currency in the center of free trade would be catastrophic. So I agree with Dana. I don't think it will happen this time around because not enough people own it.
Well, in 2014, they talked about confiscating the retirement plans, which a lot of them have gold in it, and then the government would distribute the IRA as they saw fit, not as you saw fit. So if you have a gold IRA, it's subject to confiscation by the government. I think there's as good a chance now as ever that a president, I don't think it's going to be Trump, but could be a future president that says, you know what, we think that people should not own gold, just like they did in 1933. We're going to confiscate it, as they did. And if you don't turn it in, you could be locked up for 6 months or fined several thousands of dollars. I always have that in the back of my mind. What if this happens? And that's why I think Dana and selling pre-1933 gold makes a lot of sense. Just in case they do confiscate, you've got something to fall back on. But you made a point several times in face-to-face conversations, Robert, that gold is God's money. And we find that in Scripture, and silver as well. And who's going to argue that? Taking Scripture back thousands of years too, that it's all right there. That was always the real money.
Yeah. But Jim, my friends still argue. They'd rather have toilet paper.
Well, let them have it, and we'll have all the rest of the gold. How would that be? In fact, I like seeing a drop in the price of gold, acquire more. And when people panic about getting gold at $2,000 an ounce, it drops down to $1,800 or $1,900. Just get more, because they're printing paper faster than they're minting gold.
Jim, I have bad news for you. Somebody who can't afford $2,000 can't afford $1,800 either.
That's right.
Andy, what do you think? Why is gold important?
Well, look at the most well-funded and, more importantly, well-informed traders on the planet. We may have lots of nasty things to say about the central bankers, but the central banks of the world, which I would tell you are the most sophisticated and well-informed traders on the planet, over the past 2 years have bought more gold than at any time in the history of central banking. And I think that says a lot. Not only did they reclassify it Tier 1 and go on a great repatriation spree of bringing back gold from the New York Federal Reserve and the Bank of England, where they're typically held for trading purposes, but they're buying it at levels the world has never seen. And so to me, when the people who understand the playbook, who know where things are supposed to be going, go on that big of a buying spree, it's something that should not be overlooked.
Well, it's important right now, especially for defensive reasons. The people are being fleeced. They're being fleeced. Look, since the housing meltdown, the Federal Reserve printed, made up out of nothing, roughly $8 trillion. This money works its way through the system. It causes prices to rise. It has only begun to work its way through. So you have a really grim outlook for the purchasing power of the dollar in the years to come. You better own gold as a defensive step in this period in which everything is breaking down.